This book is written by us, the Mi'gmaq of Gespe'gewa'gi. It speaks of our vision, our history, our relation to our land, our past and present occupation on the territory. It speaks of our place names and their location, the treaties we agreed upon with the British Crown, the respect of these treaties on our part, and the non-respect of them from the various levels of government. It speaks of the dispossession we had to endure while the European settlers illegally occupied and developed the Gaspe Peninsula to their own advantage. It speaks of the rights and title we nevertheless still have on our land. Our book is a result of a 15-year research alliance between the Mi'gmaq Secretariat, our people, and a number of research associates.
How we came about putting the book together is that we wanted it to be a really told by a story by all of Gespe'gewa'gi, not by an individual. So there's no one author of this book. A number of authors came together under the pen of the Mi'gmaq, the Mi'gmaq together. Nta'tugwaqanminen is a book of its time in 2016, and I guess the question I have is, why is it important now? There's a lot of change happening across Canada and the Aboriginal world, and the Mi'gmaq are poised to be at the tip of that change. We wanted to show our young people that all of Gespe'gewa'gi belongs to them. It's their territory, and the history that's out there now is a wrong history, and it's someone else's story being told. So the Mi'gmaq really wanted to get to the point to tell their story, to tell our story, and hence the name Nta'tugwaqanminen, because that's our story. We're here first on the territory. All of Gespe'gewa'gi belongs to our people. We've been pushed aside for many years, and we really wanted to show how some of that came about, how we were set aside off our lands. And we wanted to show the real history and to show the real evidence that the Mi'gmaq are from this territory, that we were here first. We've occupied the whole of Gespe'gewa'gi. We have a rich history in Gespe'gewa'gi, and no one else could tell the story better than us. And we did tell the story. We went to our elders and we looked at the evidence that's there. And it really comes together to show that our people have always been on this land.
Progressively, the two groups merged, culturally and genetically, giving rise to a new people formed by the Plano culture. The descendants of this cultural and genetic fusion are us, the Mi'gmaq people, the same that Jacques Cartier and Samuel de Champlain met during their voyages to Gespe'gewa'gi, and us again, the Mi'gmaq of today.
Most of our our information was gathered from hunters, fishermen, and also the gatherers of vegetation in our area, and also the elders on how they traveled many years ago and whatnot. So by doing so, I assured the participants that the information that they are providing, it wasn't going to be left in the wayside and forgotten somewhere on a shelf gathering dust. I assured them that the information would be, coming out in a form of a book, and that would be reflecting our community, and it'll be used for the educational purposes of our people. So I believe that with this book here, our children, our grandchildren, and the future generations will be learning from our elders, from our people of Gespe'gewa'gi, Nta'tugwaqanminen, and also Gespeg. It's a very important document because it's the information that was obtained by our own people. Our history is told by our own people, and basically it's something that was not it's not something that was like characterized as or over sensationalized. It's the real life story of our people. I'm very proud to have been part of this production of this history book. But I need to thank the people that I had interviewed and passed on that information, and you will see something coming out because of your wisdom and your sharing, the willingness to share your story. I thank you very much. I'm very happy to see this happening because it's too often we have people coming around doing surveys and nothing becomes of the surveys. But with this here, the information, it's passed on from our generation, our past, our ancestors, and it goes towards the future generation. So it's a never-ending story, and I was part of it. I'm very happy to see that.
Mi'gmaq place names, as with most ancient place names, are based on descriptive words. They describe the features of a landscape and, to a lesser extent, how oral history is woven into special places in the landscape. In this way, the people discuss their travels and their routes they followed. At the same time, they draw a portrait of the landscape and what happened there. This allows other travelers to recognize the many landmarks of a landscape even when they see it for the first time.
Looking at the place names and knowing your place names and knowing not only the names but where they are indicates that the territory was fully occupied by the Mi'gmaq since most probably 10 to 11,000 years, and that the Mi'gmaq have never left the territory and knew it fully, to the fullest. The interest of making research on place names is that place names speak and tell a story that has a value both at the cultural level, historical level, and political level, because Mi'gmaq place names have been there for millennia, and they speak about where the people came from, where did they stop to harvest and hunt and fish. And even we have place names that say where people stop to have a lunch and a tea, and they indicate where the resources are. So when you make a full list of the place names, it is like if you hear the landscape speaking about the ancestors and the way they have explored the land and the way they have settled on it and the way they have worked with it and protected it to ensure their survival and the survival of the next generations. It is a book, but it is also a slate on which people can rewrite because the history moves on all the time.
Using the evidence that we have accumulated during our years of research, we here reply to Canada's first requirement, occupation of the territory before the Crown's made its sovereignty declaration. At first instance, we can say that the archaeological proof suggests a human presence in Gespe'gewa'gi as far back as 10,000 years before present. One of the difficulties in archaeology is to link a physical proof of human occupation to a specific cultural group. This being said, pottery fragments unearthed on the territory bring strong evidence that the Mi'gmaq who greeted the first Europeans had already been present in the southern part of Gespe'gewa'gi for at least 1,000 years.
Les conclusions du rapport Kenny et Parenteau qui avait été commandé par le gouvernement fédéral et dont l'objectif était de toute évidence de nier nos droits ancestraux et pour ainsi dire affligeantes en regard du titre Mi'gmaq. La réponse du MMS a été Wes'gijin'wu'l'wet. Ce fut le début d'une magnifique aventure à la découverte de qui nous sommes. Le but de ce programme de recherche était d'abord de nous éduquer nous-mêmes et aussi de retracer les liens qui nous ont toujours liés à notre vaste territoire. Wes'gijin'wu'l'wet a joué un grand rôle dans la prise de conscience des limites de ce que pouvait nous livrer la recherche académique, puisque notre tradition en est une d'oralité et que beaucoup de notre histoire s'y retrouve. Toutes ces rencontres, toute cette connaissance et toute cette réflexion qui nous a animés durant ces années a mené à l'écriture de ce qui nous rassemble aujourd'hui, le livre Notre Histoire. Ce livre nous permettra certainement d'enrichir notre vision commune et contribuera, je l'espère, à rapprocher les membres des trois communautés Mi'gmaq du Gespe'gewa'gi. Comme tous les peuples, nous ne sommes pas figés dans le temps. Nous continuons d'évoluer avec notre temps et il est essentiel de le faire. Mais le livre Notre Histoire est là aussi pour nous rappeler qui nous sommes et d'où nous venons. Je suis très heureux d'avoir contribué à cet ouvrage et surtout de le savoir disponible à quiconque entreprendra sa lecture.
It is on these historical, sociological, and anthropological realities that rests the Mi'gmaq's juridical basis of our inherent and constitutional rights. These rights are guaranteed and protected by Section 35 of the Constitution Act of 1982. As well, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People is an international instrument adopted by the United Nations on September 13, 2007, to enshrine the rights that constitute the minimum standards for the survival, dignity, and well-being of the Indigenous people of the world. The Declaration protects collective rights, and it also safeguards the individual rights of Indigenous people. The Declaration is the product of almost 25 years of deliberations by the UN member states and Indigenous peoples.
What we attempted to do with our book, our story, is to make sure that the people, the readers, would understand the extent of Mi'gmaq rights and title in Gespe'gewa'gi. As we all know, the existence of Aboriginal rights, including treaty rights and title, was recognized in 1982 by federal legislation, included in Constitutional Act 1982, Section 35. So, in the book, you will read all the details that correspond to the Mi'gmaq reality in light of those rights. So, Aboriginal rights, how they have evolved from first contact to today, and then the existence or recognition of our treaty rights that were recognized in the Marshall Decision in 1999. How did we become signatories of treaties from a nation-to-nation perspective? Also, in the evolution of jurisprudence in the country, there have been some criteria that have been identified by the Supreme Court of Canada as to how to demonstrate Aboriginal title, which is the collective right of the people to the ownership of the land. So the first criteria, which is occupation, Mi'gmaq occupation at the moment of the Declaration of Crown Sovereignty, which would have been around 1760 in Gespe'gewa'gi, the ability to legislate, to control the access to Gespe'gewa'gi. So in the book, you will read the different treaties that would sign with other Aboriginal nations, some that were signed around the Bonaventure Island area and the Percé area, which confirmed that the Mi'gmaq had the ability to control the usage and the access to Gespe'gewa'gi. And now, as that continuous occupation evolved from that period to today. And the message is clear. We want our people to feel confident when they do exercise their rights, and that they're in a position to be able to explain why do they have those rights and how they have been confirmed through the legal system and the court system. And also for future generations to be able to learn in the school curriculum that those rights are in fact in existence, and what are the legal ramifications of those rights and how they can be exercised.
And we really wanted to be a history book that people could use in universities. And we wanted to make sure it was available at Amazon and other places. We wanted to be far-reaching and comprehensive. So right now, young people, we will be ordering enough that we could put it in all our schools in our 3 communities. We want to be able to send one to every Mi'gmaq that's in university or college or wherever. And we wanted to put it in every household in our communities. So we made sure there was enough for everyone to have. We want to put that in your hands. We want you to open it up, and we really want you to be part of the reawakening of the Mi'gmaq in our territory.
As a Mi'gmaq, and as a Mi'gmaq lawyer, I'm very proud and very glad to see such a book come out and be available. I would have loved to have that type of material at the university level, where my teachers could have explained the extent of Aboriginal rights and title from the Aboriginal perspective. Today, we have that tool, and hopefully the tool will be used by the school system and allow our younger generations to really understand the extent and the ramifications of Aboriginal title and rights in Gespe'gewa'gi.
And I've been asked to give you my perspective on the release of a new book that has a lot of Mi'gmaq content. In my opinion, we've been struggling for a long time to help students in my school have a sense of identity and to know their place not only in our local region but in Canada as a whole. And it's difficult to do when there's no written content about the historical impact that they and their peoples have had on not only our current area and local area, but on Canada as a whole. So anyway, with that in mind, we have been struggling to find any type of literature that certainly speaks to our local area. And to have the opportunity to have a piece of this caliber in our classrooms will be of significant importance for this generation and those to come. From what I have seen in the content of this particular book, we have 2 populations to be concerned about. First of all, we want to have the First Nations students themselves be able to identify with their history and with their region. And we also have to, at the same time, educate the non-First Nations students as to the role of First Nations peoples in their history and our collective history. So to have something that all of us can hang our hats on and get some valuable information from is going to be of great use to teachers in the classroom.
I would recommend this book here to any student going out to university for the first time or going back to university, because they're leaving their community and they're not going to be surrounded by their community members. They're going off to somewhere else most likely on their own. And it's very important for them to have this strong sense of their identity, something that they could get from reading this book here. I remember when I was at Mount Allison, there was many instances where my history was being taught by non-Native people, non-Native perspectives were being told about my First Nation culture or my history, and there were many times where I felt like it was being told wrong, misinformation was being presented, and I knew it was wrong, but I didn't have those tools to counteract those, to fight. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't back myself up. I felt like if I had this book at this time and had the knowledge, and I read through the book and had the knowledge of what was in this book, I would have had the better tools to give the information. And I think it's also very important for First Nation people to educate others, because not many people know about First Nation, Aboriginal, Indigenous people. Some people in other parts of the country don't even know First Nation people exist. They think they're some kind of fantasy. So I think it's important to go out there and share who we are to others and educate others about it in a kind, respectful manner, because that's who we are. In conclusion, I think this is a great book. It's full of so much information, most importantly told by our own people. I cannot stress that enough. And I would recommend for any First Nation Mi'gmaq person to read this book. I recommend teachers to teach it to their students. It's just a great book.
And that we really wanted to show that this is part of nation building, to take back your story, to take back your message, and to share your message with others. So our young people first, and all of our people in our 3 communities, but also to share with other Canadians so that they can learn the message of what the Mi'gmaq have to say. We're proud to be here. We've always been here. And in 2016, we're poised to take back our governance. We're poised to be a self-determining people, and we could really see that shaping in our territory.
Our story will continue to unfold endlessly, and it will continue to be told again and again through different voices, in different styles, and with different details of all sorts. The version we present to you here aims at meeting different needs. There was first our own need as Gespe'gewa'gi Mi'gmaq to recapture the fundamental pieces of our culture and history, to retell them in light of present times, and to assemble them in a book that would become a new resource to help us pass our teachings on to the next generations. There was also the need to provide our non-Mi'gmaq neighbors with an eye-opener as to our place in Gespe'gewa'gi, our stewardship towards it, and our rights and title over it. We do hope that our eye-opener will bring people to realize that we are, above and before, a distinct people whose territories have been stolen, subtly and progressively, yet stolen. There is no other word.
Nta'tugwaqanminen is a testament about the people in Gespe'gewa'gi.
I would have loved to have that type of material at the university level.
You know, with this book here, you know, our children, our grandchildren, and the future generations will be learning